You're good to start. Greetings, everyone. My name is Antoinette Ball. On behalf of the Women's Entrepreneurial Opportunity Project Incorporated, I'm really excited to be one of the organizations hosting this incredible event today. As an organization, WeUp remains committed to supporting the economic advancement of women, especially women of color. As women, we're still faced with inequalities, we're undervalued, and we're faced with many increased expectations. We are often overlooked, underfunded, and underpaid, but we still operate with a vision of hope. This great event is made possible with the gathering of an incredible group of women, which confirms one of my favorite quotes. Amazing things happen when women come together. It's no mistake that we decided to come together to have an event during Women's History Month, a time for us to reflect upon the past as we move toward the future. Our conversation for this session will focus on the following topic: COVID-19, impact on businesses and insulating our future. Why is this topic important? Number one, statistics show that women of color are leading and launching their businesses. However, they are still impacted by many barriers, which includes lack of access to capital, low revenue, and high business failure rate. Women of color account for 89% of new businesses opened every day over the past year, and the numbers continue to increase. We should all pause when we hear the following statistic. Of minority women-owned businesses, only 24% have revenue of $24,000, which is something that you really have to take note to. We know that our struggles are not over, and we need to continue the conversation to increase awareness and take action to make a way for women to succeed in businesses, which is important for our entire economy, especially in light of COVID-19. We're not sure what's going to happen. COVID-19 has a direct impact on our future, and leading us to the topic today, COVID-19 impact on businesses, insulating our future, is Dr. Stephanie Barnes. Who better to have lead this conversation? Dr. Barnes is the CEO of her Fruition Group, LLC. She is a Harvard-trained educated attorney and a former healthcare executive. Dr. Barnes has a long tradition of community services. She is a published author of a book, which I love, Disruptive Elevation: When the Life Does Not Go as Planned, Life Goes Exactly as It Should. I love this book, and I share with a lot of my colleagues. She has been featured in the Harvard Business Review, the Personal Excellence Magazine, and in the Huffington Post. She is an internationally recognized speaker, a leading expert, and a TEDx presenter. I met Dr. Barnes from a personal referral from one of our ladies in our WeOp circle. She thought that Dr. Barnes will be a great addition to our WeOp circle. Of course, when I reached out to Dr. Barnes, she was very receptive. She was willing to volunteer her time to empower other women with information and resources. And that's what we're all about. She has conducted several WeUp workshops, and I thank you for that. And she continues to be a strong WeUp supporter, and she continues to empower women. Not only is she knowledgeable, she continues to motivate, inspire, and encourage women to be leaders. She is living proof of the entrepreneurship spirit. She will be joined by two other amazing entrepreneurs that are part of the WeUp circle as well, Montez and Hermes. I want to thank you guys for being here and being part of this amazing conversation. Dr. Barnes is an ideal person to talk about businesses, the impact, COVID-19, and all the things that we're going through. But before we start, I want to share a quote that inspires me every day. Empowered women can empower the world. This is my quote. And in this discussion, we're going to continue empowerment, enlightenment, and inspiration as we talk about what is going to happen in businesses post-COVID-19, which is a concern to all of us. So Dr. Barnes, I welcome you to the Zoom stage. Yay!
Hello. And it is so great to be here. And Antoinette, it's always a joy to talk with you and always a joy to be a part of anything that WeUp is doing. And it is great to be here on this virtual stage with these two powerhouses that are indeed going to help us to empower each other. Now you've heard their names and you see them there on the big screen here, but before we get into hearing about these two awesome women, I want to set the stage for our discussion today. You know, now, of course, COVID-19 has upended the way we do everything. You know, it is a true disruptor, right? It has disrupted our lives in unprecedented ways and has changed the way we see the world, see each other, the way we interact with each other, perhaps forever. And you know, sadly, it is, of course, has impacted us negatively. There are people who are no longer with us, and it has really changed the way we interact with each other as human beings. But as the yin and yang of life goes, for every devastation, there's a renaissance. And I want to set the stage by telling you a little story about, you know, Netflix and Blockbuster. Now, you know, if I'm probably telling a little bit about my age, but I'm sure that many of you remember Blockbuster. And that was the highlight of every Friday night. You know, that was the thing to do. You would go to Blockbuster, pick out your movie, and, you know, see who you were going to see at the Blockbuster, and go home, watch a movie in the privacy of your own home. And it was a great alternative to go into the movies, and you could see, you know, all the different movies that you were interested in. And it was great when the new releases came out. And, you know, that was one of the joys of our life. You know, that was a disruptor to the movie industry. Instead of going to the movie or going to the drive-in, I'm really dating myself. I did that a couple of times. You know, I was like, okay. But anyway, it disrupted the way we saw motion pictures, you know, and it was exciting. But the thing about Blockbuster, of course, you had to go and pick the movie out. And then there was always the dread of trying to get it back before the deadline, right? Because if you didn't get it back, you had the late fee, you had to keep up with it and all of that. But it got really cool when we got our own cars and could drive. You could drive yourself to the Blockbuster, right? Well, then along comes Netflix. And Netflix literally changed the way we look at home movies, because when Netflix first came out, you would subscribe and they send you your 3 videos or 3 DVDs, 3 DVDs in the mail. You watch them. There wasn't necessarily a late fee, return them. And then they really made it easy for you. And all you had to do was subscribe, turn on your television, pick out your movie. Well, you know, Netflix is a purposeful disruptor, right? It changed the way home movies were delivered. And it also changed the way in our expectation of entertainment. And of course, now in the midst of this pandemic, Netflix has taken on a whole another level of importance to us. Right. But this isn't about the movies. It isn't about how we watch things on television and what we do, whether we Netflix and chill or not. It's about disruption and the question of whether we're going to be the Netflix or we're going to be the Blockbuster. Because the interesting thing about about Netflix, well, let me back up. Blockbuster was like the big company, right? It was this big, you know, major company making all of this money. And Netflix was this little startup. And Netflix actually offered Blockbuster the opportunity to purchase it for $50 million. But the Blockbuster CEO literally laughed. He literally laughed at the Netflix executives and thought it was a joke. But it turns out the joke was on Blockbuster, because right now, can you go to a Blockbuster store? I think there may be one somewhere, but it literally put this business out of business. So, you know, what can we learn from Netflix and Blockbuster? The point I really want you to think about is think about Netflix as the disruptor. Blockbuster was a previous disruptor that basically became complacent and didn't evolve, didn't take advantage of resources, and kind of stuck to the way they always did things. But that did not turn out so well for Blockbuster in the end. So I just want you to think about Netflix and Blockbuster as we go throughout. Are we going to be the purposeful disruptor that creates new ways of doing business? Or are we going to be like Blockbuster and stick to the way we've always done it and become the dinosaur in our own industries? So with that, I want to introduce to you two powerhouses that are going to help us sort through this and share some of their wisdom as we go throughout the rest of the evening. So first, coming to the virtual stage is Hermintz Matsosa. Love saying her name.
Yes.
She is the founder and CEO of Ubuntu Speaks. This is the parent company of Ubuntu, a professional development, diversity, equity, and inclusion company, and organizational, cultural, and leadership consulting firm. And they are dedicated to building the capacities and competencies of career professionals and multinational organizations. In fact, just today, she was providing training to the CDC. As a trilingual professional, she speaks French, Spanish, and English. Ms. Matsosa, or Hermintz, as she prefers to be called, has spent many years as a workforce development training specialist, facilitator, global health technical advisor, DEI and belonging, and cross and intercultural communication expert. She's worked with the Peace Corps, the CDC, as she worked with them today, and the World Health Organization, just to name a few. So I just want to welcome to the virtual stage, Hermintz Matsosa. Let's give her a virtual round.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I am so honored to be here with you ladies. And my heart, very full and warm at this moment, because for me, it's really important during this time to know who's with you and who's going to help support you. One of my favorite quotes that I live by, well, actually there's two. One is Ubuntu, which is it's a philosophy. So I named my organization after a philosophy. It's a South African philosophy of human interconnectedness. This idea that we are not alone, we are interconnected, and that I'm only fully human through the humanity of others. And so having grown up with this concept of humanity and seeing people as my brother and sisters and being there for them as they are there for me, and has really helped shape not only my business philosophy and mindset, but how I choose to market my business, how I choose to work with my clients, how I choose to really be not just the owner and CEO of this organization, but how I'm using my business to create social impact. I'm a strong believer that organizations, if they were to embody and adopt this philosophy of human interconnectedness, I am who I am because we all are, we will have happier employees. We will have individuals not only doing what they're passionate about, but doing it in a safe place where they feel seen, where they actually feel as though they belong and are respected, and that they're actually contributing to the success. And so for me, that is my overall passion. And I live with the idea or with the belief that proverb, a very common African proverb, that says that if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And every day with the little actions that, that I make and the individuals that come into my life, I am reminded just how true that proverb is. Having been with WEOP for going on, it's been about 3 years or so, and attending various different events, and especially at the start of my business, seeing, both Antoinette and Mary Ball supporting me and walking with me and not leaving me alone, just, open doors for me. And so I'm ready to do the same for others.
All right, awesome. And that is going to be one of the themes that we'll weave throughout the evening, and that's this togetherness and support, and the fact that we are not out on an island by ourselves. So we will certainly come back to you and get some more insight into how you put Ubuntu into practice and how we can think about how to weave that into the way we do business. So next, I just want to introduce to you our other powerhouse, Ms. Montez Diamond. And, you know, I love the name of her company. She is the CEO of Conflict Cookie. Now that is something really interesting, and we'll delve into how you came up with that name. But one of the things that she really focuses on, of course, is this is a management consulting firm that provides virtual conflict coaching, project management, and life skills development support. And it positions its business partners to take the bite out of conflict and turn everyday conflicts into affirming treats. Because who wants to deal with conflict? But who needs to deal with conflict, right? It is something that is positive for us. And so we're going to hear from Ms. Montez Diamond. So I'm just going to let you introduce yourself and just tell me, you know, I've seen when I listen to you, when I read about you, you know, you got this conflict cookie company and you're talking about sweet potatoes in business. What is it with you and this food and business? Tell us a little bit more about your philosophy and approach.
Definitely a foodie, primarily. Nonetheless, thank you so much for having me here for this cipher. And as you describe us as powerhouses have to play at some time. So I would just throw a little bit of confetti and celebration for all of the women, for all of your accomplishments, for all of the men and or individuals participating and viewing us right now, because everybody deserves to be acknowledged and celebrated. And so when we talk about management and we discuss business development, I really have a heart for imbalance as it pertains to the development sphere, and particularly as in dealing with entrenched disparities. So when we're talking about food is a necessity for the extension of life. And so when we talk about food, I'm the daughter of my mom, who actually grew up on a farm. And I really didn't understand the impact that legacy had on me until I was older. When I would go there and I would see various things being planted in soil, and the importance of having the right type of soil to ensure that there was fruition, having an understanding, even from a biblical perspective, of that there's a time and a season for various things to occur in your life. And that just because there are certain things not turning over, you may not necessarily have the type of crop that is necessary for that particular season in your life. And the same thing pertains to business development. So when we discuss entrenched disparities, this is the time now. The presidential administration has ushered in a new sounding clarion call for equity. And so when you hear the word equity, I'm just like, yes, finally, this is my ground. This is what it's about, to be hand in hand with people who I believe that the time is right. The time is definitely right to really move forward, as you discussed and use a great example, Stephanie, regarding Blockbuster. And then the fact of the matter is that regarding Netflix, innovation is not difficult. It's just that as it pertains to Netflix, the owner of Netflix didn't want to pay those gouged prices by way of late fees. So that's not necessarily innovative. He just didn't want to come out of his pocket any more than necessary. And sometimes as it pertains to innovation, it can be very frustrating for some individuals and can be very intimidating. But as it pertains to Conflict Cookie, is really helping individuals to be able to jump over those various hurdles, to be able to fill in the blank for various industries, enterprises, municipalities as well, and organizations, to help them understand there are plenty of people here that can help you during your time of need. It's just that maybe your scope has been a little narrow, and that the times allow it to be widened. And we're able to fill in that gap for you and stand in the gap as intercessors.
All right, awesome, awesome. Well, you know, a little cookie here and there is always good. My favorite is chocolate chip, and I can't take just a bite. I gotta keep on going. But
that's right. That's right.
All right. So, you know, we've kind of been talking around COVID-19, and it's kind of the thing that you just can't avoid it these days, because it has crept into every crevice of our life and impacts everything we do. So, of course, we are here to empower business women. So what I want to start with is just understanding from the two of you, how COVID-19 has impacted your business. Has it been a disruptor, or how has it been a disruptor? Has it disrupted you in a positive way or in a challenging way? And Hermits, we're going to start with you. If you'll share a little bit about how COVID-19 has actually impacted your business, the way you do business, and the way you find new business.
Okay, so COVID has been that unexpected thing that pops into your life that forces you to do what you've never wanted or had to do in life, and that is change. And a lot of times we are resistance to change. And for myself, my work has always been defined by me being on stage, providing trainings to large audiences and working the room and feeling, then the crowd, and being able to hold someone's hand and help guide them through the process from A to B. So that has been what Ubuntu was for me as a facilitator, as a trainer, as a technical advisor. And so when COVID hit and we were told that we no longer could work the room, we could no longer network and go out to our environment and see people face to face, it hit me hard. And even more so, I think, because I'm in global health. So I knew the impact of this pandemic probably before the majority of others, knew about it, because I was informed in December prior to, everyone else knowing that there was this pandemic that would probably cause us to, be confined. And for me, I was like, does that mean I can go, hug my sister when they need to? Does that mean that I won't be able to work that room and network and flash my smile and tell them that, Ubuntu is there to assist? And that's exactly what it did. But it forced me to also find a different way of doing business, which meant I had to go from the physical to the virtual space. And that to me was fairly new, not because I had never done virtual trainings before, but usually it was me on stage, me in a room, and people watching me, not me having to interface and hope that you feel my energy on the other side of, a computer or a laptop. And so it meant also knowing how important marketing is. So it was no longer me encouraging, me being able to talk to a potential client, flash my smile and let them know how I would be able to help their workforce and really connect with them that way. It meant spending endless hours trying to put a brochure together, a flyer together, and know, is this the right setting for Instagram, for Facebook, for LinkedIn, and recording videos. So it took extra and more. But at the same time, COVID forced me to pick up new skills, to transform, because there's one or two things that can happen to a businesswoman or entrepreneurs. You can either, when change is required, you can push back and be so resistant to it that it drowns you and you give up, or you can push forward through the problems and through the obstacles and charge forward in hopes that eventually there'll be wind behind you that will push you right through. So you can make those decisions to move forward, to learn, to continuously be a student in this business and in life in general. And so I chose to be a student. I chose to take additional classes to learn how to better market my business. I chose to spend endless hours figuring out how to revise my website, endless hours of how to network virtually and allow people to feel my energy the same way that I would if we were face to face. And then I started seeing the golden nuggets that came with virtual communication and interaction. That means I was, could connect with someone in Beijing and that maybe I wouldn't have been able to do prior to that. I didn't need to hop on a plane to have that conversation. I could have before I would get on a plane to go to a conference, which is good, but that also costs money. Now I can literally be part of these conferences from, my living room, and really meet individuals that I may not have been able to meet before, and share my passion for my business, and what I seek to do. So it's also being able to see the light when everything seems so dark. So
Right,
yeah,
right.
so that's how I've been, just being resilient and
Mhm.
taking the skills and information that I have about COVID and helping to empower others and other business owners on how to stay safe, and how to protect their business during these times.
Right, right. And it's funny you talk about how COVID-19 and all of the responses that we've had to the pandemic, where we had to take everything virtual, allow you to have more conversation. I know that, even for me personally, I had more global interactions in 2020 because the barrier of transportation and cost and
Right.
all of that was eliminated. So Montez, why don't you tell us a little bit about how COVID-19 has impacted your business?
COVID-19 was so disrespectful. It was like the friend that backstabs you and continues to talk about you and won't leave you alone. And
Right.
um, and not to an attempt to make light of something that's very serious for individuals, but nonetheless, I was in the midst of already still learning really how to grieve for the first time in my life, because my mom had passed away not too long before then. And in the process of learning how to grieve, that included having an understanding that I grew up seeing people work through every person that passed away. We attend the funeral, we return back to work. We have the homegoing celebration, we return back to work. We don't vacation. The American sense of vacation is like a 2-3 day excursion. That's not vacationing. Vacationing is being able to step away for a week or two and being able to have your various sundries that support your lifestyle taken care of while you're away. And in the midst of that, experiencing COVID, it felt as if I felt upended, bereft. My finances were definitely pushed aside. It showed me that I definitely was very resistant, just like Hermes mentioned. I was resistant to change as well. And whatever sense of progressiveness that I believed myself to be was a lie. So it taught me that I had been lying to myself. Montez, it taught me that there's some things that you need to pay attention to. And I had to slough off the residue of a sedentary business that had become very familiar and stagnated by having a particular business ecosystem of partnerships that always worked a particular way and became predictable. And so I had no sense of having some measure of disaster planning. Now, I was accustomed to pursuing opportunities for disaster type organizations, but when it came to actually having a plan of action regarding having disaster measures and methods, I didn't have that whatsoever. As it pertains to my financial prowess and things of that sort, yeah, no. Everything that required me to have to do things in person, that was obliterated. And so those various enterprises and entities, as they were a lot more solidified, it showed me that I was still weakened, a fledgling young business owner. And what I learned was that although fledgling and new, that I had to give myself credit for the things that I had accomplished. For these types of opportunities, I used to be a volunteer. I'm now validated and asked to now be a spokesperson on behalf of individuals and organizations, providing my particular expertise by way of whether I'm an entrepreneur, whether or not I'm participating on a panel, things of that sort. That's what it helped me to do. COVID has ushered me in. So I'm taking that backstabbing friend and learning how to take a friend of me and turn that into a business teaming opportunity. You want to talk about me? Well, I'm the best person to partner up with, because we can then share alike and spread the good news as it pertains to really the perception and reframing disaster, quite honestly. Right. When we talk about conflict cookie from the perspective of turning everyday conflicts into life-affirming treats, taking the bite out of conflict bit by bit, that's exactly what you have to do in order to make things happen. As it pertains to COVID and it really made me have a better understanding of civic engagement, having a better understanding as to how is it that my municipality can use me to be positioned to be able to be of assistance to other businesses that may be experiencing some of the same things. There were some things I wasn't paying attention to. There were some conversations that I wasn't having because I was accustomed to talking to the same people all the time. So COVID really helped me to be able to refresh my love for being able to serve as a clearinghouse of information for all that can be that are of interest, so to speak. It really helped to really broaden my perspective too as to what's the new reality. And it also shed light on some fears that I had. Although I see myself as a gregarious individual and a very sociable person, when it came to that internet sphere, I get really shy. When I need to put together something and I'm just like, I felt so naked. I felt like it was the creation of the world and I only was wearing a little fig leaf. I said, I'm out here talking to people and asserting myself, and yet still, there was a part of me that still was telling myself, who do you think you are? The things you're talking about have already been talked about. What is it that's so new and engaging about what you have to do and what you're saying? And I had to continuously tell myself, I don't care how many grocery stores, fast food places, some of them have hair salons. They do the same things. But there's only one Montez Diamond, and there's only one conflict cookie. Therefore, it does not matter what exists. My voice has a particular place, and there are various ears that will be perched according to what I have to offer. But COVID also taught me, Montez, there aren't enough people that know what you do. They have no idea that you do all these various things in such a multiplicitous way, so multi-dynamic. They have no idea that you serve in these various capacities. And it really showed me that, okay, well, this is somewhere where you can show up, you can let people know what you're doing, and then you can tell them and give them the opportunity to determine how and which way you can then be able to intercede and intervene if that is what they choose to do and invite you to do.
Right. And, you know, in listening to both of you, I think about something that another kind of yin and yang, if you will, that has come out of the pandemic and how we've had to respond to it to keep ourselves safe, and just how the world is operating now. And that's two ends of the spectrum: the isolation that working from home has caused.
Yeah.
Because I know, you know, this space here has, you know, been, you know, my little spot since I guess March of last year, and it's isolating, you know. But then on the other hand, it has created more connectedness, and we talked about this a little bit with the example Hermence gave, in that she's been able to connect globally more because of barriers being removed. But Montez, you talked about how this has created greater connectedness, in that it has given you and others the opportunity to collaborate and to work together and to do things that otherwise you would have done in isolation together, because it's kind of forced us all to change. So, I mean, I'm gonna come back to you and just ask about, you know, just kind of looking at that spectrum, the isolation versus the connectedness, for someone who is in our audience today. And by the way, I hope y'all saw that you can put questions in the chat. If you have a question or comment, you know, we want to hear from you. If this is resonating with us, let us know. And make sure you put that in the chat, and we will definitely engage you in this conversation. We can't see you. You can see us. We can't see you, but we will make sure that we hear from you. So please use the chat as a way to remain engaged. But Hermence, if you'll share from your perspective, you know, for the women who are in the audience today, who are balancing this one end of the spectrum, isolation, and the other end of this spectrum, you know, this connectedness, how do you keep yourself balanced so that the human side of the business person that you are can remain strong and remain engaged and really exercise that resilience?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question. The way I am choosing to do it, because I do believe to a certain extent it has to be a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's a tough choice. But I am choosing to bring in people who want the best for me and who want to see me succeed and who understand that the physical connection, although really great, is not as powerful as the mental and social and emotional connection that can be created at this time. So when I think of, this idea that I'm not alone, there are others who are also going through this lived experience in their own way. I am, my I feel, what's the word that I'm looking for? Blessed to a degree, because everyone, at least my circle, my tribe, those who are always women and men too, who are consistently looking for strategies on how to stay not just above water, but to really swim upstream, to really be successful. So I'm surrounded by people who believe that yes, COVID is here, but COVID doesn't have to take me down. And COVID can actually be, this lived experience that we all have can really be turned around and made into something that we will talk about, in years' time and say was the best time for my business. Not because you profited off of someone else or you profited so much off of the business, the pandemic itself, but you found new ways to be able to provide your services. When the example that you gave about Blockbuster and Netflix, and oh my goodness, the fact that Netflix, you just turn on your TV and you get to scroll and choose. Netflix has given their customers the option to have options and to be comfortable with that, and to be able to say, you know what, I don't have to pay those late fees. I don't have to get out, and put on my shoes and run to make sure that I drop in that video before I get taxed. But Netflix realized that their customer base was moving away from something. And Netflix tried not only that, but Netflix solved a problem.
Right.
Solved an issue between the customers and us and Blockbuster. They
Right.
came in and they solved a problem. So this time period has allowed me to see what problems can I solve.
Right.
And that means possibly shifting some of my services so it actually speaks to the problems that do exist and finding new innovative solutions to problems. And so for me, as soon as one of the ways that I was able to turn my services was providing consulting on COVID, the basics of COVID,
Mhm.
online, virtual presentations on just COVID 101. I'm a global health expert for over 20 years. And although I am no longer with these agencies, I learned a lot from, you know, prevention, treatment, and how to deal with pandemics. I responded to Ebola. So when I come and I can speak to individuals from that perspective, that, this is the pandemic, this is what happened, this is how you can prevent, and this is how you can keep it from, being from, keep it away from your family per se, or impacting your business in a way that is detrimental to your livelihood. People are willing, I think, to be able to listen because they know that I'm coming. Like them, I'm also a business owner, but I also carry this wealth of knowledge, which is global health. This expertise, I've been able to turn it around and use it. So whereas before it may not have been a service that I, provided, I didn't think I would, start my business so then I would do pandemic, disaster relief or anything like that, because I wanted to go more in professional development side of it. But I realized it all goes hand in hand. So
Right.
always being willing to change, to, renew, and more importantly, surround yourself with a tribe that supports you
Right.
and that believes in your success, even when you don't see it at times.
Right. Right. And what about you, Montez, in keeping this balance between the isolation and increasing the connectedness? What is something that you would share with someone who is trying to find that space or find themselves in that space?
As it pertains to the isolationism, that definitely was a concern of mine as well. I was able to find balance by creating controversy in my life, as in I invited myself to purposefully be around people that had differing perspectives than me. During the most heated part of the political season, I purposefully placed myself in a position from a civic engagement strategy to get a better understanding as to exactly where people are coming from, understanding what are their pain points, because by listening to their pain points, guess what? It added another service to my business.
Right.
So, and because they explained it in such great detail, instead of me taking it personally, I said, okay, well, clearly, when you find your tribe, you can also be able to gain an audience and followers based on a number of things. Other than that, I also began to notice that there were some other things that were going on. And just not too long ago, I had an uncle that actually passed as a result of COVID. And prior to, he was experiencing Alzheimer's as well as dementia. And with that journey, I was like, I'm so thankful that our family is not in a position where we have to use GoFundMe to be able to provide the finances for a honorable burial, things of that sort. So I started doing some posts to people just about, hey, have you had a chance to sit down with mom and dad, sister, brother, whomever in your family, to have a conversation about where do you keep your most precious documents? As it pertains to the African American community, there once was a time when the church was a place that held records for many families. That's one of the reasons why supremacists were burning down the churches. It's because they kept it there, and the various artwork and things that spoke to the various heritage that griots would speak to within the African tradition as it pertains to our history, the historicity as to exactly why we exist. And so with that very important documentation, I had the same mindset where I said in these various posts to people, I'm not trying to push insurance or anything like that. I just want to know, the same person that you take the time to talk about how you all don't get along, how about you have a conversation about what is it like when you go to your physician? What were the results of that? If it's not so good, what is going to be our plan of action? Because you can't scurry around, because when things happen, you understand the trajectory. You understand that there's certain things that have to be placed and put in motion, and understand too that there's a service. You may not necessarily have access to a therapist, but many people they would rather turn to the internet to argue. They would rather turn to the internet for conversations. So that in itself already shows the whole Blockbuster and Netflix situation, the changes and the shifts in and of itself. And so even as it pertains to, because I know civic engagement is a really huge piece too, a strategy as well that I was able to use as it pertains to resiliency, because I was so up in arms about the Ahmaud Arbery case. One of my classmates and mine and I were working on this right now, is that we are working on a white paper to publish the various perspectives of individuals that actually live in Brunswick. What was it like in the area where he was murdered? So that you can have various perspectives. We're creating a survey that can then be used by various municipalities as well. So we're positioning ourselves in the space of being infopreneurs, as well as using our research as it pertains to our master's degree level of education regarding conflict management. Because the field of conflict management typically has the face of that of a person that's not of color as the actual purveyor, as the spokespersons, as it pertains to the theories, as it pertains to the practice. And we're now having the opportunity to bridge the chasm and to show a different face. And he happens to have different ideological beliefs than I have. And I said, well, what we do believe is that individuals are not to be slain and not to be held accountable. And the way that you can always hold somebody accountable is pen on paper, because that goes nowhere unless you burn it. And that is going to be our contribution to civic engagement. And that's the strategy that we use to be able to continue to confront entrenched disparities, and for individuals to not feel as if all hope is lost, because that's very easy to do.
We've talked a lot about you know, the Netflix aspect, the innovation, the things that you've done to create new opportunities, and the things that you had, the new practices and ways that you are doing your business now that you are having to respond to the demands and limitations of COVID. Let's talk a little bit about, you know, what's some of the blockbuster aspects of our business that we need to leave behind as we begin to emerge from the pandemic. And I am hopeful. I don't know when it will be, so I'm just going to put that out in the universe as we emerge, because we are in some respects. But, you know, what are some of the blockbuster practices in our businesses that we don't need to pick back up when things go back to normal? But they won't go back to normal, it'll just be a new normal. Hermins, we'll start with you. What do you think are some of those blockbuster things we need to leave behind?
Oh, wow. Well, access to capital is definitely a challenge for Black women, entrepreneurs and businesswomen. I feel, you know, when PPE loans came out, you know, everyone was excited about it. But then, at least for myself, actually going through the process of applying for it and then waiting. And for me, it was I did not receive that loan simply because whoever inputted my data once I submitted put the wrong date of the start of my business. And so I went back and forth for 6 months trying, even though I sent in documents and everything, of trying to convince them that the error wasn't made on my part, but on theirs. And so that was frustrating in itself. And I was like, it shouldn't be so hard to get capital to be able to sustain my business. So I feel like that has definitely been a challenge, a big roadblock to the work that we seek to do and who we are as entrepreneurs. But one of the things that has also taught me, because I am such a giving person, and I've had to have others within my tribe and the coaches that I've surrounded me tell me, Hermins, you have a lot in your toolbox. You have a lot to offer, but you don't have to give it for free. You know, you don't have to give it for free. And so, having been a Peace Corps volunteer, and, you know, even when I was working, I was volunteering my services and traveling overseas to volunteer. That's who I am genuinely. I give. I will not leave my brother or sister hungry. And if I'm full, then they too must eat. So, with that philosophy, I've gone in and not really setting my prices and really knowing the value that I bring to the table, to my services. And that has been definitely a roadblock and a learning experience, because, you know, when you're volunteering and giving, but you have a 9-to-5 job or with a salary and you receive a paycheck every 2 weeks and you have benefits, then you know what, it's charity work and you feel good about it. But when you are running your own business and you no longer have checks coming in every 2 weeks, then there's you giving away your services or not putting value to, you know, what you do, and getting compensated for the hard work that you do has an impact not only on yourself, but if you have a family, impact on your family. So I had to, you know, it took honestly several times looking at my bank account saying, that doesn't look like, no, there's no way. I'm just like, really? Hold on a second. I can't be someone who has traveled all over the world and 20 years plus and have done this and been on stages, and my bank account looks like that. But then I look at my calendar and I see everything that I've done, and I'm like, it doesn't match. So for me, it has really taught me that putting value on my services doesn't mean that I'm not a giving person. It just simply means that I know my value even more, and that I'm a business owner, and business owners have a hard time finding capital. So I have to create the capital for myself. in order to sustain. So that is definitely that mindset of just giving away. I have to leave that behind. Now, you know, having coaches in my life who let me know, yeah, you could, there's nothing wrong with having charitable work. I love to mentor young professionals, but why not have a mastermind group where
Right.
they give a little to be able to acquire the wisdom and knowledge and services? And so that's what I starting March 6th. I have a global health mastermind group. And at first, when I put it out, I was like, let's see. But the hardest part about putting this mastermind group was settling down on what I was going to charge for the mastermind group.
Right.
And my husband was like, babe, come on, you can't give everything for free. I was like, yeah, but they're young professionals and this and that. It's like, you have to give value to what you're doing. And surprisingly, I have my mastermind group is full with the desired number that I have from have individuals from Africa, from South the Caribbean, from who want to be part of my mastermind group, who want me
Right.
to provide them the wisdom, and they're willing to invest in themselves. And so
Right.
for me, that has really been a learning lesson. Just how do you put value on your services when you're someone who is so used to giving?
Right. So that's something I hope that ladies, those of you who are in the audience, really picked up on, is that, you know, one of the things that we have to leave behind is not valuing what we do. All of the skills that we have, even though, of course, we could give them away for free, they are a way to generate additional capital. And one of the statistics that you heard early on when Antoinette, began the program, you know, we can really appreciate how important it is as we emerge from this pandemic. And even if it never existed, is that we have to learn to value the services that we bring and make sure that we don't undercharge or don't charge at all, so that we can thrive. Because the more we thrive, the more we can give. You cannot give from an empty cup.
Exactly. Yeah,
Get
for
into
sure.
what you're able to give to others. Montez, what is one of an examples of the blockbuster moments that you believe we should leave behind as we emerge from the pandemic?
You can leave behind the fact that what works for today doesn't work for tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was yesterday. And it probably worked very well. However, what got you here won't keep you here. And as we're talking about value, particularly when you're dealing with someone who's not even following basic instructions and wants to be in business with you, that speaks volumes as to what your journey is going to be like. Leave behind as a part of a blockbuster moment to stop doing more for people that don't want to do for themselves. Be very aware of codependency, especially when you're within the line of service to companies. Sometimes if you're an empath, if you happen to have a huge, you hold space for compassion and things of that sort, understand that predators and narcissists, they love doing what they do every single day, every moment of the day. And there's no need to be able to give them the fodder that they so deserve or that they believe they deserve. And so when you have to be very understanding and cunning that people at times are looking for discounts. Understand that as it pertains to blockbuster moments, you don't have to have other people to be your cheerleaders, because there are millions of people who want to know who you are, but they don't know where you are and they don't know who you are. There are plenty of people that would like to follow you, that would like to be a part of what you do, that will offer you opportunities as well. You don't need the people of yesterday. That can include not only friends, but also family, because sometimes you can feel like, oh, why isn't my family supporting me? My friends know that I've been doing this. Why don't they? And then they call you and tap into your skill set. And it's like, no, dear heart, you shall get the same link that other individuals are interested in receiving. Commandeer my time, right? Because it's not okay. It's not okay. And that's another level of codependency. And sometimes you don't realize how deep the hooks are just because of the various generational indoctrinations, the teachings, things that people try to tell you. Oh, oh, that's your business, your little business, your small business. Oh, that's really cute. Or, like things like that, that over time you think that oh, I'm not really paying that much attention to it, but it's in the back of your mind, and then it comes out in how you engage with your clients and customers, as opposed to you getting uprooting that thinking, those mechanisms that will attempt to come and attack you, and being resilient and really standing in your power and in your positioning, because you're meant to and you deserve to show up in the world with these particular skill sets. Two, something of yesterday is not being mindful as to exactly your level of fatigue. If you are tired, then please handle that. Please handle that, because nobody else is going to care enough about you if you don't care about yourself. And people say that, of course, and you can feel as if it's a cliche, but literally someone's willing to go ahead and stand in your space and place if you're not willing to really respect your level of mindfulness, your own well-being, your health, your mental acuity as well. If you're tired, you really have to be able to take a break, because now we really are on different timetables. What you're doing can be extended a lot longer. And people think that they're slick with these contracts too. They'll ask for one thing, but will sit back if you're offering even more. They're not going to step in and say, oh, no, 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 you've done enough. Yeah, no. They'll continue on and on and on. Go ahead, little rabbit with the little energizer bunny and the little batteries in your back. Go right ahead and do what our whole department would do. And then we pay you less in order to do it. Yeah, no, that's a Blockbuster situation, and that's old. What is also old is not being aware of your loss for your businesses, not having some sense of accountability regarding accounting for your monetary value of your business, understanding your strengths and weaknesses as to what you're actually doing. Because if you're not really looking at the numbers, so to speak, just because you received an idle loan, just because you received the PPP, doesn't mean that you are really in a position. You may not necessarily be in a position. Nonetheless, your business may be boombastic right now. It may be doing extremely well. Nonetheless, there are still some businesses that don't have that level of monetary accountability. And that's definitely a Blockbuster era situation, because you have to be aware of, as they say, your coin and your bag and how you flip your money, so to speak. So,
Right.
yes, indeed.
That's right. So one of the things I took away from that is, just the importance of, keeping your eye on moving forward, and really understanding that just because you've always done it doesn't mean you should continue to do it. And, what worked for you yesterday may not work tomorrow. And you've got to constantly evolve. And like she says, keep your eyes on the numbers, know your numbers so that you can remain accountable to yourself. And we do have one question before we get to the closing conversation. And that's just around, we've talked a lot about connectedness and collaboration and reaching out to others for resources. But how do you vet these people? How do you know whether they are the real deal and whether you can trust them? Montez, we'll start with you, and then Hermintz, you can share your thoughts.
That's a great question. I had a recent situation where I didn't vet this individual, and I assumed that because we attended the same college that it would be a great connection. I assumed because it was a minority owned business as well, that and that because we were within the same less than 6 degrees of separation, that the connection would be based on integrity, that this person had a moral compass, things of that sort. But it turned out not to be that way, right? So as it pertains to your question, the vetting process for me, even more so, which is I didn't even have a measure or any protocol around vetting per se. I was very open-hearted as it pertains to opportunities, which being too open-hearted can give you results as if you're operating in desperation. Mm-hmm. And I now operate off of the premise that in order for me to work with you, the same thing you would have to go through if you're interviewing for a job, then why wouldn't the same thing pertain to me? I'm going to monitor how things are going within that 90-day period, or if it's not 90 days, whatever that period is. I'm also going to have various documentation. I'm also going to ask for references. I also need to have an understanding as to in what manner and in what way, who are you and what have you done? What is it like to actually work with you? Not just what you have in your brochure, not what's on your website. From an interpersonal perspective, exactly where are you as it pertains to the value of your character? Because if your character is questionable, then right, it's going to come out in the manner in which you perform, and it's going to come out through your attitude. And that's what happened with that person. That person ended up being having a maniacal way in which that person operated, and had a manner in which they would communicate where they would attempt to make a spectacle out of various things because they lacked emotional control and management.
Mm.
So that's what that is my process moving forward.
All right. And then Hermes, what about you? How do you figure out if, you know, the people that approach you or people that you're considering to collaborate with, if there's someone that you should have that to with? Uh-oh, have we,
And
I think,
and we're gonna start wrapping down. We have about 4 minutes left. This is a great conversation, but let's just start wrapping down.
okay, we are.
Okay.
All right, because I
Sorry
think
about
her
that.
mints may I think her mints may be frozen. So with that, what I will segue into is the final question of the evening. And that is kind of sharing your one thing, you know, because we have shared a lot of jewels. You know, we have talked about the importance of human interconnectedness and how we maintain that balance in this period of isolation and collaborating and making sure that we build new connections. You know, we've talked about the importance of a tribe. That has come up so so often in terms of how important it is for us to rely on each other. We don't have to do it all by ourselves. We've talked about opportunities and the forced change that has been thrust upon us, that has allowed us to evolve in ways that perhaps we've not. And one very important word, and that is choosing how we are going to move forward. So Montez, I want to close with this question of you, and that's kind of, if you could share the one thing that you could do to ensure the sustainability of your business going forward and that our audience could learn from as well, what would that one thing be?
The sustainability of my business right now really rests on pursuing subprime opportunities, and using teaming agreements as well as joint ventures. Whenever I come across an opportunity and I know it's not within my bandwidth, I always reach out to individuals that I know who have been doing the things that I'm interested in for much longer than I have. Because being able to have that longevity as it pertains to their level of professionalism, it definitely speaks volumes as to their level of preparedness, which means that not only could I potentially be able to subcontract, but during that process, I'm also positioning myself to continue to learn, strengthen, and refresh skill sets. And it really comes to mind something that during my high school graduation, the valedictorian quoted something from a poem called Desiderata. And towards the end of the poem, Desiderata, it says, no less than the trees and the stars, you have a right to be here. And whether or not it is clear to you, the universe is unfolding as it should. So as it pertains to sustainability, those subprime contracting opportunities, and having an understanding that the manner in which you believe things will unfold with your business may not unfold in the manner in which they do, that you think they do. If you can just perceive your business experience as in developing your love language towards your entrepreneurship journey, fall in love with your entrepreneurial journey and treat it as if you're a gamer. Because if you treat entrepreneurship as if you're playing a game, you're more concerned about getting to the next level. It doesn't matter what's in your way. You're going to knock it down. You're going to jump on top of it. You're going to knock it. You're going to run, try to get out of the way, jump in the water. You're going to try to, I don't know, get on the back of some animal to ride out a particular terrain or something like that. You're not thinking about the fact that you're in treacherous territory. You're just thinking about, I want to get to the next level. And so that's what my mentality is as it pertains to sustainability, having a mindset of a gamer, growth mindset, and looking out for subprime opportunities and positioning myself with people that are not new to this, they're true to their journey.
Right. So, you know, we close out with emphasis again on connecting with others who have better opportunities, greater opportunities, or you know, again, not undervaluing the skill set you bring and recognizing that somebody needs the very valuable skill set that you have. And Hermes has rejoined us as we close out.
Sorry about that.
Right, you know, and that is inevitable in this day of Zoom and all of our interconnectedness is at some point someone will lose connection. So I just want to say thank you to Hermence. Thank you for the incredible knowledge that you brought and just really driving home that importance of that human interconnectedness. And Montez for really forcing us to think about conflict and controversy as something delicious and not something that we should avoid. It truly is an opportunity to create something new. So, as we again begin to emerge from this pandemic and figure out how life, how business will look next, we've got to ask the question, are we going to go back to the way things were? And I'm hoping that the answer is no. And I hope that you've heard from our speakers tonight how really this is an opportunity to take it to the next level. We're like that gamer trying to take it to the next level. Adapting to life in response to COVID-19 has really freed us from the norm. We don't have to do things the way we used to be. That's yesterday, right? It's time for us to throw that box away. We don't have to be in the box. We can create a new box. We can create this new open space that allows us to do more things and create better things together. That's the word. We've got to be committed to doing more things together. We can focus on innovation and agility and continuous improvement, but and I'm gonna try to make sure I say this correctly. If we go by ourselves, you can go a little bit. I know I'm not getting it right, but if you really want to go far, you need to work with others. You need to have those connections. So I hope that, as you think about and process all the information that you've heard tonight, that you really focus on these 6 things. These are 6 things I just want you to remember really quickly. And that is, number 1, we must stop using what we've always done as a compass. Number 2, we must be courageous enough and willing to totally abandon current strategy to implement the best strategy at the right time. Number 3, can't overanalyze when the right time is. It just is when it is. Do it. Number 4, we must start with the way it should be, or more importantly, the way it could be as our compass. Number 5, we must be creative, innovative, well-informed, rationally coordinated, know those numbers, and well-equipped. And then number 6, we must have unrestricted vision, but we can't ignore the brutal realities. This is a great opportunity for each of us to become a Netflix in our own right. So I want to thank you for joining us.
Thank you, and thank you, Dr. Barnes. Thank you for the speakers. We really appreciate you. And stay tuned. We do have a mentoring session after this, and we have other events going on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So thank you all for such a great session. And we're going to close down. We're a little bit over time, but it was great. It was amazing, ladies. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This has been an honor. It's been wonderful conversation, and stay uplifted and keep pushing forward. And if you have the right people with you, then only success will come in due time. And remember that everyone has a season, and even when you may think that your season is not this may not be your season, don't forget to plant those seeds.
So let's go to our mentoring sessions right after this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Mentoring.